Just finished watching the Tyson Fury Chisora fight. Now, first things first, let's forget about the boos in the crowd. Let's forget about the fact that it wasn't a devastating knockout and that it wasn't the grittiest of action at times. This was a masterclass from Tyson Fury. This was a real coming of age fight, by far his best and most impressive performance in a professional ring. The words that come to mind: ultimate professionalism. The attributes on show were extraordinary. For a man of his height and his size to perform and to show the skills he showed is truly spectacular. He took very, very little by way of offence from the new Dereck Chisora. Dereck Chisora was unable to get inside on him. Dereck Chisora was unable to land to the body, unable, to land pretty much anything. He made Dereck Chisora look like Chisora had absolutely no game plan, that Chisora had absolutely no attributes. This was a far, far more dominant performance than the first fight. And for me, the way he did that was the movement around the ring, the angles he fought at, the jab. It completely negated Chisora's game plan. What Tyson brought to the party today meant that Chisora's whole game was nullified, and there was very little he could do other than sit there and get his head taken off from a distance. Now, Tyson Fury, he can punch. He's a 6, 7 out of 10 puncher. He's not a David Haye or a Vladimir Klitschko puncher. But if you stand there and take shots like Chisora did, you're going to get bust up. And Chisora had a swollen eye, a bust lip, a bust nose. Yeah, he looked like he'd been in an absolute war. It was such a tough fight for him. And credit to Chisora for finishing up on his feet, eventually getting withdrawn by Don Charles in the 10th round. I myself scored every single round of the fight to Tyson Fury. I didn't think any of the rounds were remotely competitive. I didn't think there was any realistic claim that Chisora won a single round. And I thought this was a disciplined, professional performance from Tyson Fury. We've seen in the past he's been hittable, he's been susceptible to the overhand right. Today that was completely nullified. Dereck Chisora, who's probably the most common punch is the overhand right, was wildly missing. It wasn't that Dereck's never been the most accurate of puncher, but it was Fury's footwork, Fury's head movement, Fury's positioning in the ring that completely negated that assault. And once again, we saw various different attributes to the Fury game. We know he's got the movement, we know he's got the jab, but it was so much more than that on show tonight. I love the fact that for a guy who's 6'9", when he was throwing combinations, he was regularly dropping with body shots. You never see Vladimir Klitschko doing that, but often Fury will jab to the head and then with quick hands you work the body. He also was excellent on the inside. He threw a nice short uppercut on the inside. When Dereck Chisora was coming in, he was able to tie him up, completely negate and nullify the Chisora inside attack. I think he won the fight on the inside, he won the fight on the outside, and it was just a near complete performance for me. He took very, very little from Chisora. It was all Fury. He was working the head, he was working the body, inside, outside. It was a real destructive performance and dominant performance from Fury. I think Dereck Chisora, for me, he's always been a fighter who fails just at the top level. It's no surprise his losses have come every time he stepped up in class. And I think Eddie Chambers in commentary made some very, very good points today. Eddie says even a fighter as fast and dynamic as Eddie himself finds it hard to get on the inside of Fury. So how can someone as one-dimensional as Dereck Chisora hope to achieve that? And to be honest, he was absolutely right. Dereck Chisora's movement was very sort of one-paced. There was no variety to it. It was just treading forward. The Chisora jab was either non-existent or so weak it was absolutely pointless. On the inside, he had nothing to sort of fight with Fury. He was just getting tied up. His looping overhand rights were too inaccurate. Fury's defence and head movement was too advanced. I think at one point Chisora turned to Don Charles and said, "My feet don't work." And I think that is how successful Tyson Fury was. he just completely negated Chisora's offence to the point where Chisora was thinking his feet just don't work. They're not working as he planned to. It was a very, very poor performance from Chisora. He didn't have any sort of plan B. He didn't have any sort of variety to his game. But I'm inclined to think that it's not that he just didn't turn up without any game plan and without any hope of winning. It's that when he was actually there, facing a 6'9" heavyweight with a jab, with movement, with angles, with an inside game, with an outside game, it's just his game plan was taken away from him and sort of torn and ripped aside by Tyson Fury. For me, that is head and shoulders Fury's best performance. I think it puts him right at the upper echelons of the heavyweight division. We know Dereck Chisora is rated very highly with several governing bodies. I think he's ranked sort of 4th or 5th on BoxRec, which to me seemed ludicrously high to begin with. But I think after that performance from Tyson Fury tonight, there can be no real question that he is a top 5 heavyweight. It was so dominant. We've seen Chisora in fights with Klitschko, Helenius, Hay. He may have been unsuccessful on those occasions, but even in the David Hay fight, and I was at that fight, he had spells where he looked decent and dangerous and effective. Even against Vitaly Klitschko, he had spells where he asked questions of Klitschko and caused problems, but not tonight. He caused no questions, no problems for Fury, and I think Fury had another 3 or 4 gears. He was just starting to open up his shots in the 10th round when the retirement came, and I think we didn't even see the best of Fury tonight. The way he fought, if he can fight with that discipline, that level of professionalism, he genuinely could beat Vladimir Klitschko. The big worry with Fury is he too hittable? Is he too open defensively? But he's a bigger man than Klitschko, he's got bigger reach than Klitschko, and if he kept the fight at range, if he used that movement, if he jabbed from a distance, and if he kept as tight as he was tonight, albeit that Klitschko is a far superior fighter and athlete to Chisora, then he is at very least competitive in that fight, and I expect him to pose more difficult questions than Povetkin, Leapai, Pianetta, Pulev, etc, etc. Very impressed and pleased for Tyson Fury tonight. Dereck Chisora, you'd have to say at this point in his career, the chance of a world title shot is dead and gone. There are still big fights out there for him. If I was David Price, having seen another tall fighter against him, I'd fancy that. If I was Eddie Hearn, I'd be considering Anthony Joshua. To be honest, the performance he put tonight, if I was Peter Fury, I'd be considering Hughie Fury against him. You never know, Audley Harrison's looking for a comeback. There are still big money British heavyweight domestic classes for Chisora out there. But for me, I've had serious doubts about how he performs at the top level. Tonight really didn't have too much threat. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts.